I'm Jessica Martinez, 29, and last Christmas, my father humiliated me in front of our entire extended family, calling me a failure living in a fantasy world. What he didn't know was that 3 weeks earlier, I had sold my cybersecurity startup for $45 million. The look on his face when I canceled all their business contracts the next day was priceless. But let me start from the beginning. Growing up in our suburban Phoenix home, our family seemed perfect from the outside. Dad, Roberto Martinez, owned a small but successful construction company, while Mom, Elena, managed the household and worked part-time as a bookkeeper. My older brother Carlos was the golden child, star quarterback, business major, everything Dad wanted in a son. My younger sister Sophia was the sweet, obedient daughter who never caused trouble. Then there was me, stuck in the middle, always trying to prove myself to a father who couldn't see past traditional definitions of success. From elementary school, I was drawn to computers and technology. While other kids played outside, I was learning to code, building websites, and dreaming of creating something that would change the world. Dad's reaction was always the same. Jessica, computers are for nerds who can't handle real work. Focus on something practical. When I won the state programming competition in high school, Dad missed the ceremony because of an important business meeting. When MIT offered me a full scholarship for computer science, he said, "Why waste for years on something that might not even be a real job in 10 years? Carlos is studying business, that's a real career." But I went to MIT anyway, using my scholarship and working part-time to support myself. The distance from home felt like freedom. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who understood my passion for technology and innovation. During my junior year, I developed a cybersecurity protocol that caught attention from professors and industry experts. Instead of joining a big tech company after graduation like my classmates, I decided to start my own business. Dad's response when I told him was predictable. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life. Come work with me in construction, at least that's real work." I haven't spoken to him for almost 2 years after that conversation. Starting SecureShield Technologies in a cramped Boston apartment with my MIT roommate and co-founder, Maya Patel, was the hardest thing I'd ever done. We survived on ramen noodles and coffee while building our first product, an AI-powered threat detection system that could identify cyber attacks faster than anything on the market. The first year was brutal. We were rejected by dozens of investors who said our solution was too complex or not marketable enough. We bootstrapped everything, using my savings from internships and Maya's inheritance from her grandmother. Our breakthrough came when a mid-sized bank suffered a massive data breach that our system could have prevented. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know about SecureShield. We landed our first major client, then another, and another. By year 3, we had 50 employees and were protecting over 200 companies from cyber threats. Major corporations started approaching us, and our revenue grew from thousands to millions almost overnight. Meanwhile, contact with my family remained minimal. Occasional texts with Mom and Sophia, but nothing with Dad except for awkward small talk during the rare times I called home when I knew he'd be there. 3 weeks before Christmas, Tech Global, one of the largest cybersecurity companies in the world, made us an offer we couldn't refuse: $45 million for SecureShield. With Maya and me splitting the majority stake and our employees receiving substantial bonuses, the acquisition closed just before the holidays, but I didn't tell my family about it. They knew I had a computer company, but nothing more. To them, I was still the daughter who chose an unstable career over something practical. When Mom called to invite me to Christmas dinner, I hesitated. 3 years of minimal contact, 3 years of Dad's disapproval hanging over every conversation. But something in her voice made me agree. Maybe it was time to try rebuilding some bridges. I flew into Phoenix on Christmas Eve, renting a modest sedan and staying at a nearby hotel instead of my childhood home. I wanted the option to leave if things went badly. Christmas Day arrived with the typical Arizona sunshine. I drove to my parents' house, the same Spanish-style home I'd grown up in, now looking smaller than I remembered. Mom answered the door with tears in her eyes, pulling me into a tight hug. "Mija, you're here. You look wonderful," she whispered, holding me longer than necessary. The living room was crowded with extended family. Aunts, uncles, cousins I barely recognized. Carlos was there with his wife Jennifer and their 2 young children, looking every inch the successful businessman Dad had always wanted. Sophia had brought her fiancé, a nice guy who worked in marketing. Dad appeared from the kitchen, older than I remembered, his dark hair now peppered with gray. He nodded formally, shaking my hand like I was a business acquaintance rather than his daughter, Jessica. Good to see you made it, he said, his tone neutral but not warm. Thanks for having me, Dad. Dinner conversation flowed around traditional topics: Carlos's promotion to regional sales manager, Sophia's upcoming wedding, various family news. When attention inevitably turned to me, I tried to deflect. How's the computer thing going? Asked Uncle Miguel, genuinely curious but clearly not understanding what I actually did. It's going well. We've grown quite a bit over the past few years, I replied carefully. Dad snorted from across the table. Growth in tech doesn't mean anything. These companies inflate their numbers all the time. What matters is profit, stability, something real you can build on. Dad, Sophia warned gently, but he was just getting started. I'm just saying, Jessica has always lived in this fantasy world of technology instead of focusing on practical careers. Look at Carlos, he's got a real job, real success. He just bought a house, has a family, builds something concrete. I felt the familiar tension building in my chest, the same feeling I'd had countless times growing up. Technology is practical. Dad, cybersecurity protects companies from losing millions of dollars to hackers. If it's so practical, why are you still living in that tiny apartment in Boston? Dad challenged. Why aren't you building wealth, starting a family, doing something meaningful with your life? The room had gone quiet. Carlos looked uncomfortable. Mom was staring at her plate. Sophia reached over and squeezed my hand under the table. My work is meaningful, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. We protect businesses from cyber attacks that could destroy them. Protect them how? With software that might work or might not. With computer programs that could be obsolete next year. Dad's voice was rising now. You've wasted years chasing after something that's not even real while your brother has built an actual career. Something inside me snapped. 5 years of building a successful company, of proving everyone wrong, of creating something that actually mattered, and he still couldn't see it. You want to know what's real? I said, my voice calm but carrying an edge. 3 weeks ago, I sold my company for $45 million. My share was $22.5 million. The silence that followed was deafening. Carlos dropped his fork. Uncle Miguel's mouth fell open. Even the kids seemed to sense the shift in the room. Dad's face went through several expressions: disbelief, anger, confusion. That's ridiculous. If that were true, you would have said something before now. Why would I say something to someone who's never shown interest in my career? I replied, someone who calls my life's work a fantasy. You expect us to believe that your little computer hobby made you rich? Dad's voice was dripping with sarcasm. These tech valuations are all fake anyway. It's not real money. I pulled out my phone and showed him the acquisition announcement that had been published in TechCrunch that morning. Tech Global doesn't deal in fake money, Dad. As he read, his face went pale, then red, then something I couldn't quite identify. If this is true, he said slowly, why are you here pretending to be modest? Why not tell your family about this supposed success? Because I hoped you might be proud of me for who I am, not what I have, I said quietly, but I can see that was naive. Dad slammed his hand on the table, making the dishes rattle. Don't turn this around on me. You walk away from family for years, barely communicate, then show up making outrageous claims about some business deal. Roberto, please. Mom tried to intervene, but he was beyond listening. This is exactly what I was talking about, he continued, his voice getting louder. Living in a fantasy world, making up stories to sound important. Even if this deal is real, it just proves my point. Tech money isn't stable. It's all speculation and hype. I stood up slowly, placing my napkin beside my plate. You're right about one thing, Dad. I shouldn't have come here expecting things to be different. Sit down, Dad ordered. We're not finished with this conversation. Yes, we are, I replied, surprisingly calm despite my racing heart. Thank you for dinner, Mom. It was delicious. Dad stood as well, his face flushed with anger. If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back until you're ready to stop living in your make-believe world. I looked around the table one last time at Mom's distressed face, Sophia's supportive eyes, Carlos's uncomfortable expression, and the mix of shock and curiosity on my extended family's faces. Goodbye, everyone. Merry Christmas. As I walked out, I heard an explosion of voices behind me, questions, exclamations, mom calling my name. But I didn't turn back. The next morning, still processing everything that had happened, I made a discovery that changed everything. Out of curiosity, I checked our client database and found something shocking. Martinez Construction had been using SecureShield's services for over a year, paying premium rates for our enterprise security package. Further, investigation revealed that several of my family members' businesses were clients. Carlos's real estate firm, Uncle Miguel's restaurant chain, even Mom's bookkeeping service for local small businesses. They had all signed up after a major cyber attack on a Phoenix construction company had made local news. The irony was perfect. My father had built his business's digital security on technology created by the daughter whose career he dismissed as fantasy. I called Maya, my business partner, and explained the situation. I need you to implement service reviews on several accounts, I said. Nothing that would harm their actual business operations, just temporarily limit their access while we conduct standard security audits. You want to mess with your family's accounts? Maya asked, though I could hear the smile in her voice. I want them to understand exactly how imaginary my work is, I replied. By noon, all the Martinez family business accounts had been flagged for routine security reviews, temporarily limiting their access to our platform. The automated emails explaining the process went out to all account holders, including my father. My phone started ringing within hours. First Carlos, Jess, there's something wrong with our security system. The company says it's a routine review, but the timing seems suspicious. Then Uncle Miguel, Mija, my restaurant's computers are having problems with that security company. Do you know anything about this? Finally, Dad himself left a voicemail. Jessica, there are problems with our business systems, and it's connected to your company somehow. We need to talk. I didn't return any of the calls. Instead, I sent a single email to all of them. I understand several family businesses are experiencing service reviews with SecureShield technologies. This is standard protocol, though I wanted you to know that as the founder and former CEO, I'm aware of the situation. Perhaps we should discuss how imaginary cybersecurity really is. I'll be at the Phoenician Resort restaurant tomorrow at p.m. if anyone would like to have that conversation. The next day, I arrived at the upscale restaurant early, choosing a private table with a view of the mountains. I wore a simple but professional dress, nothing flashy, but commanding respect. Dad arrived first, looking older and more tired than he had at dinner. Carlos came next, then Uncle Miguel. Even Sophia showed up, though I hadn't expected her. Before anyone says anything, I began once they were seated. I want to make something clear. The service reviews are temporary and legitimate. Your business operations aren't at risk, just temporarily limited while we verify security protocols. Dad's jaw was tight. You did this on purpose. I did this to make a point, I corrected. For over a year, you've all been relying on technology that I helped create. Your businesses depend on the very fantasy you dismissed at dinner. Carlos looked uncomfortable. Jess, we had no idea SecureShield was your company. Why would you? I replied. No one ever asked about my work beyond dismissing it as impractical. Uncle Miguel leaned forward. Mija, I'm sorry about what happened yesterday. Your father was wrong to speak to you that way. Dad's face reddened. I'm sitting right here, Miguel. Then act like the father she deserves. Uncle Miguel shot back, surprising everyone. The tension was thick, but I pressed on. I'm not here to punish anyone. I'm here to establish some boundaries. The service reviews will be lifted tomorrow morning. But moving forward, if you want to maintain business relationships with companies I'm involved with, there needs to be mutual respect. Sophia spoke up for the first time. What does that mean exactly? I pulled out a folder I'd prepared. I'm offering to help Martinez Construction modernize its operations, new equipment financing at favorable terms, digital transformation consulting, and expansion capital. But only if Dad agrees to family counseling sessions to address our communication issues. Dad stared at the folder like it might bite him. You're trying to control my business. I'm trying to save it, I said firmly. Your current loan rates are killing your cash flow. You're paying 3 times market rate for equipment financing, and your operational systems are 15 years behind your competitors. Carlos opened his copy of the proposal, his eyes widening. Dad, these terms are incredible. The consulting alone would cost us hundreds of thousands if we hired it independently. I don't need charity from my daughter. Dad said stubbornly. It's not charity, I replied. It's an investment in family. But it comes with conditions. 6 months of family counseling, implementation of the recommended business upgrades, and honest communication about our relationship. The table was quiet for several minutes. Finally, Dad spoke. Why would you help after yesterday? Because despite everything, you're my father, I said simply. And because I believe people can change if they want to. Dad was quiet for a long moment, then reached for the folder. What kind of family counseling? The kind where we learn to communicate without attacking each other, I said. Where you learn about my world, and I learn to understand yours better. And if I refuse, then the business assistance is off the table. But you're still my father. I'll still want a relationship with you, just with clearer boundaries about respect. Dad studied the documents, his expression unreadable. Finally, he looked up. These terms are more than fair. The question is, can you forgive a stubborn old man who was too proud to admit when his daughter surpassed him? The words hit me harder than I expected. Dad, no, let me say this, he continued, his voice rough with emotion. I was wrong. Wrong about your career. Wrong about technology. Wrong about what success looks like. You built something amazing. And instead of being proud, I was scared. Scared that your success highlighted my failures. Sophia reached over and squeezed my hand. Carlos was staring at Dad in amazement. None of us had ever heard him admit to being wrong about anything. We've all made mistakes, I said gently. But we can fix this if we're willing to work at it. Dad nodded slowly. Then yes, I accept your terms. All of them. 6 months later, the transformation in our family was remarkable. The weekly counseling sessions had been difficult but healing, bringing to light years of misunderstandings and unspoken expectations. Dad had learned to listen without judging, and I had learned to share my world with someone who genuinely wanted to understand it. Martina's construction was thriving with updated equipment and systems. Dad had embraced the changes with surprising enthusiasm once he saw the results: increased efficiency, better client relationships, and significantly improved profit margins. Our family gathered for Sophia's wedding in June, and the difference was night and day from that disastrous Christmas dinner. Dad walked me to my seat before the ceremony, his arm linked through mine. I've been thinking about what you said about building something meaningful, he said quietly. I spent so many years focused on traditional measures of success that I almost missed the most important one: raising children who could surpass me. You didn't miss it, Dad, I replied, squeezing his arm. You just needed to adjust your definition of success. During the reception, Dad surprised everyone by giving a speech that mentioned not only Sophia's happiness, but also pride in all his children, including my daughter Jessica, whose vision and determination built something that protects businesses across the country. It was the first time he had publicly acknowledged my career with genuine pride. As the evening wound down, Dad pulled me aside one more time. I have something for you, he said, handing me a small wrapped box. Inside was a simple silver necklace with a pendant shaped like a computer chip, engraved with "To my brilliant daughter, love, Dad." I had it made by a local jeweler, he explained, looking slightly embarrassed. I wanted something that represented your world, not just mine. I put it on immediately, feeling the weight of acceptance I'd waited years to receive. The money from selling Secure Shield had given me financial freedom, but rebuilding my relationship with my family had given me something more valuable: the knowledge that love and respect could overcome even the deepest misunderstandings. Today, 2 years later, I'm working on my next startup while serving as a consultant for Tech Global. Dad and I text regularly, and he actually asks informed questions about my work. He's even started referring other construction companies to cybersecurity firms, proudly mentioning that his daughter was a pioneer in the field. The greatest wealth I gained wasn't the $20.5 million in my bank account. It was learning that sometimes the people we love most need time to see us clearly, and that success isn't just about proving others wrong. It's about creating space for relationships to grow and heal. Our family's Christmas dinner this year was everything that previous one wasn't: warm, supportive, and filled with genuine pride in each other's accomplishments. We've learned to celebrate different paths to success, and Dad has become one of my biggest advocates. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's creating something better than what was broken. In our case, it was building a family that finally understood that there are many ways to live a meaningful life, and all of them deserve respect.